Now, stage fright. Hi, everyone. I'm Caitlin, also known as Truckle Tart. I'm here with Carl, also known as Puka, and Kevin, also known as Tidal Dragon. And we're here to announce the winners and runners-up for the FROGS Awards. There are site-wide awards, the first annual ones for hpfanfictalk.com. So got 18 categories and lots of great authors to talk about.
Yep. Let's jump right in.
All right. So the first category we were going to talk about was for the best original character. It would be any character that is completely unique to the author writing the story, but built into the world of Harry Potter. And we had lots of nominees, all of them really talented. One of you guys want to talk about the runner-up?
Sure. So, Carl, it sounds like you want to take it away. So take it away.
So runner-up was Victoria Ann with Hero Blishwick from Hero. I know I validated that story. I'm blanking on remembering a lot of it right now.
It's a really cool story. Hero is a young woman. She's dealing with some tragedy in her life, and she befriends a young Tom Riddle and falls in love with him. And it gets creepy and dark from there, as you might guess, since it features Tom Riddle. One of the things that I really appreciate about it is that Bianca does such a fantastic job of writing Tom Riddle in all his creepy glory. It's very canon compliant. It's like it came right out of J.K. Rowling's universe.
I remember that more of that now. He's very manipulative and Tom Riddle-ish there.
Definitely.
So winner in that category was also Victoria Ann for Finn Blishwick in The Harder They Fall.
And this is one that that I had the pleasure of reviewing. I don't remember if it was review tag, or review swap, or review request, but one of those things straight from the forums on the website. It has been a while since I read Hero, but I read The Harder They Fall much more recently, and I think Finn is a really interesting character. Is we get to see a lot more of sort of like the friend, if you can sort of really call anyone of Tom Riddle's people his friend, but sort of the friend dynamic in Tom Riddle's inner circle, and a lot of the interplay between the Slytherins there. There's some definite jockeying for power. And a lot of, I think what Bianca writes best about Finn is this sort of struggle that he has with fitting in with all of that, and the struggles that he's had carrying on from Hero, which actually was written first, I believe, and how he's feeling inside about everything that's going on. So congrats, Bianca, on writing two epic original characters who were so awesome that they swept first and runner-up.
Yeah, that is quite the impressive feat to get both first and second. So kudos to you, Bianca. The next category that we have is Best Next Generation. So Next Generation is basically like Harry Potter's children and friends. It's a really, really popular category. There's so many great authors in this category. It's always really, really hard to choose. The runner-up in this category is somebody that is a very creative and talented person. I've read many of her stories, and no matter what genre she's writing and what era she's writing, it's always excellent. But this one really stood out as spectacular piece. So for the runner-up for this category, I have This Treasure by Not Theodore. Live reaction. One of you guys want to get the winner?
Yes, yes. So the winner in this category was Dormitory 2.6A by Dirigible Plums.
I haven't had, unfortunately, the pleasure to read the entire story, but what I have read of Dirigible's story was incredible, really well written, and I know that it's like really captivated people. There's like a huge fan following on that story. I have to grab my charger real quick. I'll be right back.
So to sort of pick up where that left off, I think I also, like Caitlin, have not been able to finish the whole story, and I've been secretly withholding reviews that I'd love to write for Dirigible on it as well. But I think one of the things that people have to like about this story is that the characters are written so authentically, and there's also like at least one character for I think anybody to feel like they can really identify with in the story. And I think that's something that's, because we all draw from personal experience as writers, I think that's something that's often really hard to do, to create characters who are more outside of that, and that kind of anybody can really cling on to outside of the main character that people can kind of imprint on. But she's definitely done it as far as creating more of an ensemble that people can identify with, sort of more who they want rather than imprint like on a main character. So
like
well, go ahead.
Looks like we lost Caitlin for a moment here. So she left the group chat. So probably when she put her in.
I guess while she was reconnecting, we will go ahead and jump into the next category, which was Best Marauders Era. This is an era that has it seems across different sites, it's got a lot of different names. I think it's most widely known as Best Marauders Era, which is kind of around the time that obviously the Marauders are in school, as well as a little bit after with the culmination of the First Wizarding War. If you've only seen or read on HPFT, I don't think any of our people are sole HPFT readers, but it's the First Wizarding War era for us. And the runner-up in this category was Once Upon the Marauders by Flaming Quill Tips.
Ish is such a fantastic writer. I'm like really, really particular about Marauder era stories, but I read a lot of her story. I've validated quite a bit of it and had read some of it previously, and it's fantastic how she's covered them and how strong of characters she's made each and every one of the different Marauders and their friends.
Yep.
So for the winner of the Best Marauders, right?
Yep.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. The winner of Best Marauders is How to Tame a Marauder by Melian. This is a pretty classic story in the HP fandom. It's been around for a while. It is, again, another fantastic example of how to write the Marauders. Mel does just a beautiful job in building this complex world full of rich and unique characters that don't just rely on the bit of information from Harry Potter, but have like their own unique story. It's really well written.
The relationships and the building of the relationships is so believable and well written through it too.
Absolutely.
And if that doesn't convince you, is so good that somebody made a YouTube tribute video. So believe in how to tame a marauder.
Yeah.
Great job, Mo. So our next category is best romance. A category that I'm like impressed by everything in because I can't write romance to save my life. This again was full of good options and great stories, and this was also one of those categories that came down to a very, very narrow margin. So the runner-up in that category was The Harder They Fall by Victoria Ann. I think we talked about that a little bit earlier in the best OC category, but Bianca does such a good job of building believable characters and really unique relationships, and it's great watching Finn kind of develop throughout the story.
Yeah. Then the winner in that category was Chai, Carrots, and A Friend in the Wee Hours of the Morning by 800 Words of Heaven.
That is such a fantastic series. The Chai series in general is like one of my favorite things. I was a hardcore Neville Luna shipper, and that series of stories actually kind of converted me to the Hannah Neville team because of the way that Hannah's written in the story. It's like she's a woman after my own heart. She's a chef, and she makes all these amazing food, and she basically is a friend to Neville, and they grow and bond throughout the series over different foods like samosas and all sorts of delicious things, throughout this little series of stories. But Chai and Carrots is my favorite of the series, and it's absolutely like what romance should be. It's cute and believable and realistic. It's not over the top or melodramatic. A really, really good piece.
Yeah, I think it's I've not read the whole series, but I know I've read this one, and it's one of those perfect romance category. Yes, I will admit it here to HPFT and the internet that I indulge in a good romance fanfic from time to time. But it's one of those excellent earnest portrayals, like Caitlin was talking about. I think it's true to life, which so often we don't see happen in that genre. And I would encourage anybody to read not just this story, but I think you'd be interested enough to read the whole series after reading kind of one vignette because they're all excellent.
I highly recommend reading them all just because it's like you get to see the whole situation instead of just this one little moment. So what do we have up next? Oh, so our next category is going to be Best Angst. And this seems to be one of those categories where there's like an abundance of things to choose from. And it's so hard because there's so many good angsty stories. But this came down to one vote between runner-up and winner. So it was literally like by a hair. So the runner-up in this category is Kisses, Blood, Valentine by Too Many Curls. It's a really cool story. I read it a while back, and it employs like the flashback, flash forward sort of thing, but in one of the most effective ways that I've seen it done. It keeps you on the edge of your seat. It's really suspenseful and tense, but just, gosh, the feels. You want to cry and sob at the end of something. Read this.
And then the winner in that category was Schrodinger's Cat by Tidal Dragon.
Yay!
I have not read, but now that I see it, I will.
So I'll talk about that a little bit. So Kevin wrote about Harry and Ginny and the death of their relationship. And the thing that I think makes it such effective angst is that it's written in a very realistic way. Anyone that's experienced like the death of a marriage or the end of a very long-term relationship will recognize the slow crumbling There's no like definitive situation. There's no dramatic like plates crashing against the wall, people screaming at each other. It's just one day Harry wakes up and realizes like this isn't the same as it was, before, and it's just like the pain in it is tangible. And so definitely a good one for best angst. You have people cheering you on over here too, by the way.
Yay.
Yay!
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
all right. So moving right along, our next category is the best major character. So best major character could be anyone that is like a major part of the book. So Harry, Ron, Hermione, Neville, Ginny, Sirius, main characters. We didn't have a ton of nominations in this category, but the ones that we did have were all incredibly strong. Like, I'm still not sure how people chose. Want to take it away, Kevin?
Sure. So the runner-up in this category was Sirius Black in Breathe by Pop Punk Padfoot. There you go, another live reaction. Excellent. And so I will say I understand that that Kayla has put this story under some edits, which I have not read yet. But I can only imagine that there would only serve to make the characterization even deeper and more incredible than it already was. I think one of the things that I loved most about Breathe was a lot of times you see Sirius Black as like the marauder that it's sort of easy to make a caricature of rather than a nuanced portrayal. But Kayla in this story really makes Sirius a nuanced character. Also, particularly in the context with of his relationship with Remus Lupin, in the aftermath of him almost sending Snape to his death, which is, I think, a huge moment that often really goes unexplored. So, congrats, Kayla! Awesome job with Sirius.
So next up on the list,
I'll carry on with the winner, I guess. The winner in this category was Lily Evans from In Fields of Poppies by Sunshine Daisies Windmills. And this characterization, I actually think I was the person who nominated Lily. And it's another one where I think the great thing about it is instead of Lily being defined sort of in comparison to or by the relationship with James, as I think happens an awful lot, even really with both characters, to be perfectly honest. But Lily is really created as a person who has flaws, but who has great strengths and fits this within this this great narrative of her family's heritage and how they've fought wars of their generations and how she's a fighter in the generation that she's a part of.
So next category we have is best minor character, and the runner-up in that category was Dobby for the Next Great Adventure by Treacle Tart. I really like seeing the way Dobby is used in this story as a psychopomp guiding Harry through the next world. I think the characterizations of Dobby and Harry in particular really strike true to me.
And I couldn't agree more. I've had the opportunity to read more parts of this story, as I know I've talked to Caitlin a lot about it. I know it's her baby right now, but she writes this connection between Dobby and Harry, not just with Dobby's role, but I think so well, because she steps so far away from what people typically do with house elves and really makes him the strong character that he ends up being in the end of the story through Deathly Hallows, and everything that he does to continue even after death, helping Harry along the way.
And then the winner in this category is Antonin Dolohov and Braided by Diogenessa.
And I don't know if we can hear Caitlin. I can't hear. So just in case other folks cannot hear her, I will jump in and say that Dolohov in the story, totally deserving of this award. He is incredibly creepy, and the way that he's written, his sort of psychopathic obsession, and the way that he keeps his victims. He's written as the perfect Death Eater, the perfect murderer, really torturer, in this story, and I think it may be the first time that that I remember anyway that like a super dark character won Best Minor Character, but totally deserved in this story. As dark and disquieting as it is, it's just incredibly well written by Karen.
You back up and running, Caitlin? Does not look like it.
So we will charge along. Hopefully technical difficulties will be resolved with Caitlin soon, since she has put in so much heavy lifting of making this live stream possible even, and making it come together. But the next category is Best Original Fiction, and the runner-up was by Belpata Lupin, and it was her story Where the Planes Take Off and Land.
Looks like still having technical difficulties, Caitlin? Yeah, it still looks like it. If you want to comment, you can comment in the comments section on the right too. Pardon us while we try to work through some technical difficulties.
And so Caitlin is giving us her comments sort of through the chat as we work through the sound difficulties as far as her end goes. This story is actually a poem on the archives, and it is about deep and profound loss. As Caitlin said, it's a really deeply touching story about the relationship between children and parents, and the loss of that relationship, and how lonely someone feels sort of when the parent-child connection is severed. And it is one of those things that, as poems go, I think it's got an exceptional cadence to it that makes it easily readable. It's not one of those poems where you come in and feel like someone's trying to write poetry.
Can you hear me?
Specifically, which I know there are competing schools of thought on that, but I always enjoy sort of the more natural flow, and it handles the complexity really well.
Can you guys hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Woo! Sorry.
Would you like to take over and announce the winner of the Best Original Fiction category?
Yes, I would like to announce the winner of the Best Original Fiction, but before I do that, I just want to say that Kiara's poem is brilliant, and it was like, I'm not a super teary-eyed crying kind of person, and I felt myself getting really choked up when I read it. I thought it was a really beautiful piece. So, Best Original Fiction is for Renara and her story Absolution. I've got to validate a couple chapters of it in the queue, and it is a really unique piece. She's done just a great job of building this world and characters within this world that I want to invest in. You know, that's always the risk when you write original fiction, is if you can build characters that are interesting enough to draw your readers in. And she seems to really have snared everyone's hearts and minds with her recent piece.
It's really interesting to see diversity looked at through the eyes of history too, in that way.
Absolutely.
For those of you who don't know about the story, it's about the Titanic and the voyage of the Titanic looked at from a fictional standpoint. It is quite interesting and very historically accurate.
Definitely. Really worth the read. And she does such a good job of describing and imagining what this world would look and seem like and how people would act and everything. The interactions seem really genuine. It's really, really well written. So the next category that we have is original fandom, or I'm sorry, other fandom. And so basically that would be anything aside from the Harry Potter fandom. Though we are called HPFanfictalk.com, we do like to give authors the option to write other fandoms if they'd like. That area of our site is slowly growing, and we've got lots of stories from like Game of Thrones, Andromeda, Numbers, lots of different little fandoms growing. So this category is to celebrate that. So our runner-up in the original, or in the other fandom category, is Visenya by Rhaenyra. It's a Game of Thrones fiction, and it's a really beautiful, well-done piece. I know it was also a really tight race. This is another one of those ones that came down to like the wire. So there's a lot of love for this story out there.
It really explores those relationships between the siblings and the way they had to deal with everything that was going on during that first Dragon War. I might have the name of the Dragon War wrong, but
so the next, the winner of the other fandom category is Waiting for the Light by 1917 Farm Girl. Jill wrote this story about Andromeda, and she's currently uploading it all to the archives. It's like over 60 chapters, I believe. And I've personally never seen Andromeda. I knew nothing about the fandom or any of the characters, and I actually originally started reading little pieces of it as she was writing, and I was really immediately drawn into and invested in Harper and his story. She is not nice to her characters in it, so be prepared for tragedy to befall them and things to happen. But one of the things that I really appreciate is that no matter how bleak things seem, she's able to maintain like a positive spirit in her characters and write believable and interesting scenarios for them to face. Definitely worth reading. Even if you've never dabbled in Andromeda, you'll pick it up right away.
definitely will pick it up right away. I agree 100%.
And I think that's one of the testaments to both of the people who place in this category is, while they definitely immerse you in the worlds of each fandom, they also are so well done with the characters and relationships that you don't have to so much have these sort of preconceived notions of who the characters are to appreciate the writing and the quality of the story.
Absolutely. Both of them are excellent pieces, and like I said, it came really down to the wire, so it shows just how beloved both stories are. Our next story is the best LGBTQA story, and this is another one of those categories that's really popular. We had a lot of really, really good nominations for this category. So our runner-up is Ignatia by Aphrodite. It's a really lovely one shot, and it follows the Hilda Bagshot, and it's a really unique piece, and it sets up some dynamic and relationships, and it makes you look at different characters in different ways. Really beautifully written. If any of you have read Af's work, you already know how beautiful her description is, and this is more of that beautiful description and a really, really unique piece from her.
As someone who doesn't write description well, it makes me jealous. So winner in this category is A Little Like This by Banshee.
I feel like this is an appropriate win because Julie is the queen of writing LGBTQA fics. This is another excellent testament of her writing. I have lost track of how many awards she's won at this point, because just everything that she writes is so brilliant and fantastic. So I'm not at all surprised to see her win here. So the next category that we have is Best Mental Illness. We decided on this category to kind of celebrate all of the different stories that we have on the archives that celebrate different mental illnesses. They range from post-traumatic stress, depression, anxiety, hallucinations, fugue states, all sorts of different things. So tons and tons to choose from, and this was a really strong category. Lots of good authors in it, tons of great stories. It's one of those ones where, again, I'm at a loss for how people even chose stories. So the runner-up for Best Mental Illness was Braided by Dionysa. Braided follows Antonin Dolahav as well, and it just does a beautiful job. I mean, she won Best Minor Character for the same story, and it just does a beautiful job of developing him and creating this really unique, interesting character. I don't want to go on too much because I don't want to give a lot of the story away, but it's absolutely worth the read.
Right, and it's I talked about this a little bit before, but it unquestionably portrays a very, very dark side of this category, I think, but it does it in a very profound, powerful way.
Definitely. So the winner in this category is Haunting Shadows by Dreamgazer220. Jill is a fantastic writer, and Haunting Shadows is really enthralling. It isn't initially apparent necessarily that there's mental illness going on, but as the story starts to build, it kind of works into it, and you start to kind of unravel the puzzle along with the characters. It's really, really dynamic and engaging, and an excellent example of Jill's writing.
And I think that's sort of the majesty of the story in this category, is how it portrays mental illness sort of the way that it often exists in the real world, that you just walk around encountering somebody most of the time, just knowing what they may be dealing with, and it develops that very well throughout the story. So the next category is best dialogue, and I want to make sure that we're on the same page with this one. So give me a second.
I think we're not. I have the correct one. So the runner-up on this one. Oh, okay. So the runner-up for best dialogue is The Prince and the Pirate by Banshee. It is a lovely piece. I actually haven't read this one, unfortunately, because I'm terrible, and I'm sorry, Julie. I love your work, but I will get to it as soon as I can.
I read it for Capture the Flag.
Hi, Kayla read it.
Chime in. We read it. I read it for Capture the Flag. I think I might have seconded that nom or something because I was so blown away. If you haven't read it, the entire story is dialogue. There's actually nothing but dialogue in the whole story. But even though there's no, like Albus said, Scorpius said, they all have such clear voices that you can always tell who's talking, who's saying what. It's a really impressive piece of work.
Yeah. All right.
And it's a Scorpius fic that actually doesn't just center solely on them. It involves family later on, and it's also got a wonderful flavor of humor to it as well, with the personalities that come out in the story that gets told.
So the first placer in this category is a very beloved author. She's written a ton of stuff, and she is known for breaking everyone's hearts. If you've ever read any of her stories, you know what I'm talking about. The winner for Best Dialogue is Pure Intentions by Rose, or by Too Many Curls. So Rose has her whole world that she's created, and this is one of the lovely pieces within that world. All of Rose's writing is really dynamic. The characters that she creates are incredibly deep. She builds in original characters and next-gen characters that are just like, so easy to believe that they came straight from J.K. Rowling and they're just part of canon, and like it's like they just belong there, like they've always been there.
All right. So the next category is best description, and this was a really tight race as well, between the runner-up and the winner. In the end, the runner-up was In Fields of Poppies by Sunshine Daisies Windmills. And I talked a little bit earlier about Lily's portrayal in this, very worthy winner of the Best Major Character honor. And a big part of the story's success as a whole is obviously the descriptions. What sort of stands out to me in this category that was really interesting is the division and how close it was kind of shows how successful different kinds of descriptions can be, because Katie has this really earnest, detailed, but not not what you'd necessarily sit there and say like, oh, this is prosaic type writing. It's much more earnest and kind of earthy. but the description really puts you in the different eras that the story is set in, and it really gives you a great nuanced feel for how those characters are in the world that they live in.
One of the things that's fantastic about it too is that it tackles the description of war in an interesting way. Like a lot of the times when I think best description, I think of like really flowy prose and pretty words and a lot of like emotional context. But Katie uses a lot more like down to earth description and talks about some really ugly stuff. You know, World War I, World War II, and then the Wizarding War. And she doesn't really shy away from it. She ponies up and, you know, writes all of that in its nitty gritty, like toughness. And I think that's what makes the story so fantastic, is that unflinching honesty about war in it. So the winner for Best Description was a fantastic piece. I think no one will be surprised by who has won here, because I feel like everything this person writes is a masterclass on description. So Bluebird by Aphoride has won Best Description. And if any of you've read Af's work, you know that she's just like a master of description. Bluebird was an experimental piece that was for the metaphor challenge and became like literally lots and lots and lots of metaphors. And it's just phenomenally good description. It's really like a work of art in its own right.
Definitely a work of art. I agree with the way it explores Dumbledore and Grindelwald there.
So our next category is Best One Shot. And this was a big category. And this is possibly the hardest category to figure out, I think, for nomination and for judging, just because, I mean, there's so many one-shots to choose from. So you really have to write something special for your story to stand out here, I think. And our runner-up definitely wrote something special. This story is from a very unique perspective. It's a perspective I haven't read in any other story, in fact. It is Sleep Without Pain, and it's by our very own Puka. So congratulations, Carl. Yay.
When I wrote this story because one of my cats has IBD, and I was really starting to think about her mortality a lot and how it would be from her point of view. And I'd written a story from Crookshanks' point of view before, so I just kind of wanted to go with that.
Well, you did a beautiful job. I know that there's not many people that can read through this without having tears in their eyes. It's very touching, and anyone that's ever loved an animal, I think, can really relate to what you're talking about in your writing here.
Thank you.
So the winner in the Best One-Shot category, and this was also incredibly close. This was a one-vote decision. So the winner is Erasure by Abraxan Unicorn. And Erasure delves into George Weasley and his process of mourning his brother's death. And it does it in a way that's pretty unique. I mean, I've read a lot of stories about George, you know, post-war George, and this one does it in a really unique and interesting way. And it's gut-wrenching and heartbreaking and somehow slightly hopeful, and it's just a total standout. I read it during CTF. The Gryffindors read it, and then they're like all going on about, oh my God, this story. And so I went and read it myself and was just blown away by it. It's absolutely a standout one shot for sure.
So our next category is the big one of the big ones with novel. And runner-up in this is When I Go Out With You by Doja 167.
When I Go Out With You is such a cool story. It's told in short chapters. I think each chapter is like 500 or 600 words, if I remember correctly. And it is a really, really, really interesting piece. Sam is a brilliant writer, and everything she does is phenomenally good. This one in particular is something that I haven't really seen on the archives by anyone else. And it features Hannah Abbott and Susan Bones and polyamory, or the concept of polyamory. And it deals with how, even though Susan is in a polyamorous relationship, how she balances her different relationships, how her heart breaks when, you know, a relationship ends, and how she and Hannah kind of come to be together, and how Hannah comes to meet Neville, and just there's so many characters from canon in it, and she writes each one spectacularly and in so much depth, and it really gives a lot of like punch and flavor to a lot of these background characters that we don't see a lot of in canon. Really, really a beautiful piece. And our winner for Best Novel is Saving Severus Snape by Meg Gonigal. Meg, this is, I know, like been a labor of love for her. She's been working on this story for a long time. And it is it's a time travel fic, but it's one of those time travel fics that can convert even the most dedicated anti-time travel fic people. I personally never ever read time travel fics nor Snape Hermione stories until Meg's story, and that changed that for me. This explores what would have happened if Hermione had gone back and tried to save Snape, but it does it in a way that avoids the standard cliches. She builds this beautiful world and these beautiful relationships, and she does a really great job of making this plausible and believable, and it's definitely worthy choice for Best Novel.
It's one of the few time travel novels that I'll just sit down and read myself, so I agree with you 100%. I'm one of those time travel haters, and I just generally, as soon as you say time travel, I'm not interested, but this story breaks through that wall, and it gives the characters believable motivations and characterizations.
Absolutely. So our next category is going to be for Best Reviewer. And reviews are a big thing here at HPFT and really anywhere that people are writing. It's such a nice feeling knowing that your work is appreciated and getting some love and feedback. And it's also great receiving good, helpful critique to improve. And so the job of a reviewer is a really important one. So we want to recognize people that are, you know, excellent in that field. So our runner-up for Best Reviewer is somebody that is an endless fountain of positivity. She leaves encouragement and kindness for everyone. She's done some incredible reviewing sprees where she's gone and left like hundreds of reviews at a time. And not only does she leave a lot of reviews, but she also leaves like big lengthy reviews. They are definitely something that I know every author looks forward to receiving. And so that honor goes to Stella Blue. So Kristen, congratulations on runner-up.
And the winner in this category was, and this was another really close one. I feel like we've had to say that about several categories, but this one for me was one of the most difficult to choose in because there were 5 or 6 people, if I'm remembering correctly, who were nominated, who were all just incredible. I have received, or I think I've received reviews from every single person who's nominated, and it was incredibly competitive between just some incredible people who are such dedicated writers themselves, but also take the time out to really give feedback as well, which is huge. And the winner in this category was not Theodore, aka Sharn.
Live reaction. Yay!
Yeah.
And I think this one would probably, even in a very competitive category, come as no surprise to anyone who has also been on the end of Sharn's reviewing sprees. Baffling to me how she can craft such detailed reviews so quickly. But every single one of her reviews goes into such detail about the story, and touches on sort of almost every level that a writer would want feedback on. Both giving a whole lot of encouragement and positivity, as well as peppering in some kind of tweaks that people can make to make the story even better. So many congratulations, Sharn.
Definitely. So we're getting down to the end here. We've got 2 categories left. So the next category we have is Best HP Rebuilding. This is another era that gets explored a lot, I feel like, because there's a lot to explore. Characters coming back from war, people dealing with deaths, injuries, mental scars, rebuilding their lives. And there is so many excellent stories exploring them. This category was a pretty tough one. It was also one of those ones where I'm just like, oh gosh, how do I pick? So our runner-up was an excellent story. I feel like I've said so much about this person already, so it's hard for me to keep going on in circles. Coincidentally, that's also the name of the runner-up, Circles by Not Theodore.
I think she's getting shy over there.
She is.
She keeps saying, "Oh, this is so embarrassing."
Yeah, you can't hear her, but every time I turn the camera away, she's like, "Oh God, this is so embarrassing."
Don't be embarrassed. You deserve all of these.
Okay, so now that we've thoroughly embarrassed Sharn for the night, shall we get into the winner?
Absolutely. And the winner in this category was After Destiny by Cam Angst. And this story, I have not been able to read all of it. It's one that that Dan started uploading pretty recently to the archive at HPFT. But it is a really deep exploration of the people right around Harry's year and Harry's close friends, and how their lives might really be after the Second Wizarding War, with what they have to deal with. Because I think it's a natural instinct after the horrors that they've all gone through to want to sort of give them this swift transition to hunky-dory happy. But Dan goes down the grittier road, really look like to recover from that trauma. And as always with all of his stories, he does an incredible job describing it and immersing you in it. So congratulations, Dan.
He definitely does not blink away from the real PTSD issues that most of them would be having at that time. And really, to me, especially explores the way Harry would feel and the way he would take it all on himself. And it really shows that to me throughout that story.
You know, the thing too that I really appreciate about this story is that, like, he really knows all of the characters. Like, a lot of times, you know, we see Ron as like the stupid sidekick, and like he's just kind of there for comic relief. And Dan explores him in a way that's insanely beautiful too, about how he has to be strong because Hermione and Harry need him to be strong. Like, he can't allow himself to break down because he has to take care of everyone else. And you know, there's
and his family too.
And his family, yeah, it's amazing. Like, he explores how every character's interactions are affected by this rebuilding. And you know, the thing that's great too is that, like, yes, he's exploring post-traumatic stress, but he doesn't forget that there's still moments of humor even with people dealing with these kind of horrors. Like there's moments where like these little mundane things happen that, you know, might not normally be that funny, but it turns into like a release for the characters, and it's a really brilliant piece. It's one of the best things I've read probably in the past few months. So I highly recommend reading it.
And so that moves us inevitably to our final category of the night, which is most versatile author. And I think through the nominations, I think we discovered that versatile might mean different things actually to a lot of different people, based on the nominations, all of which I think are viable definitions. But our runner-up and winner, both very deserving of this award. Just incredible writing over a vast breadth of characters and topics and types of writing. The runner-up in this category was Bronwyn, aka Abhorsen, aka Beezy, who has such versatility in her writing that she has to have 2 accounts to contain it all. But she has written so many stories across different fandoms, with so many different characters, as well as original works. And so I have no question, just in all of them that I've seen uploaded, and the ones that I've had the pleasure of reading, a very, very deserving nominee and runner-up in Bronwyn.
100% agree with that. And then our winner in this category is Caitlin, or Treacle Tart, as you might know her. Could be no surprise to somebody who's taken on the task of writing a story for every Harry Potter character out there, and took on, what was it, 50 or 100 stories last year?
100. I'm up to 129 now.
100. This is title defended too, right? Right, Caitlin?
Boom.
There we go. So I think anybody who's visited Caitlin's author page, perhaps the Claws recently in particular, have had the great blessing of exploring that full breadth of, I think it's 129 now. Did I hear you right?
Yeah.
129 stories. Have no question about what an incredibly versatile author Caitlin is. And I think the thing that can't go unnoticed as part of that, is it's easy to say a big number, but it's also incredible the depth and care that gets taken with each of these stories and everything about them, which I think is a huge testament to Caitlin's abilities.
You're gonna make me blush. All right. Well, that wraps up everything, I think, for our awards ceremony here. So 18 categories, 36 really awesome people. Definitely, or 36 awesome stories and people. So definitely, if you haven't read any of these stories, make sure you go and read them. I really highly recommend them, and shower all the winners with reviews and love. I will be posting probably in the next couple hours a full post with awards graphics, pips to add to your banners, and a full announcement in case, you know, technical difficulties or anything got in the way of anything that we had said. So look for those later this evening, my time, or wherever you're at, in, you know, probably 3 hours or so. They'll be posted. Okay. Thanks for joining me, Kevin and Carl. It was fun. I am here in New York, so I got to go look for some good pizza now. So have a good night, everyone.
Bye.
Adios, HPFTers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.